I actually ran into a rarity, an Iridorian mercenary. Shaylos asked me to investigate something as well, a Selkath I met. Apparently his problem, unlike Nilko's, was that Selkath children were disappearing in the vicinity around the Sith Enclave, and he figured if I ever got in there somehow, I should talk to him. The Iridorian mercenary, though, actually told me that he might have had something to do with...
I bet they're twisted.
But the Iridorian mercenary confirmed that the Sith were actually kidnapping the Selkath children. He had done it, in fact.
We might.
Found another Sith negotiator similar to the Republic one.
You're new around here, aren't you? My name's Duan. Well, some of the soldiers like to go and bet on. It isn't easy here, you know, but I don't really. Oh, I get it. Come on. Seems I.
Talked to some drunks around the bar.
Hey man, clear out.
I decided to see what kind of stimulants the bartender had, but he didn't really have anything I was super interested in. And I didn't really want to hang around the drunk bar anyway. So we cleared out. Decided it was high time to explore the rest of Otto City. And currently the only other thing in the area was the jail, and I really wasn't interested in going to jail, so we decided to head for the East Central Courtyard. I didn't really see anyone else of interest in the West Central Courtyard I had just left, so just like that, it was time to head to East Central and hopefully find the Republic Embassy. As soon as we entered East Central, though, we found a standoff between a bunch of Republic and Sith soldiers yelling at each other. And I could tell that the neutral policy on Manon was not enjoyable for anybody, but everybody needed Kolto. The miracle healing drug was essential for both sides, and they had to get as much as they could. Stumbled into a store. Apparently the owner didn't like the Sith, which was A-okay by me. Looked through his gear, but he didn't have anything super impressive. He had some interesting Mandalorian weaponry, some interesting weapons, but I was pretty set at the time, and I wasn't super interested in getting anything crazy. He even had a rather impressive implant on in his inventory, but I wasn't up for it at that point, and I don't think anybody else was, so we left it. But across from one of the biggest hotels of Manon, we found the Republic Embassy. Spoke to a man named Roland Wan.
Welcome to. Oh, an eight. Well, we were using.
He quickly admitted to.
This here you can. You'll need.
He quickly admitted that the Republic actually had something going on down at the bottom of the ocean, and implied that we might have some way to get there. Certainly that the Republic had a submersible we could try to use. He offered 3 options: interrogating a Sith prisoner, trying to crack a code to get into their base, or just attacking them at their own landing pad and stealing their shuttle and flying to the base. Not being one for waiting around, I decided to just take the easier option. And so we returned to the Ebon Hawk for a quick rest before me and the 2 girls headed off to attack the Sith base. We needed to get to the bottom of the ocean. Whatever Roland could do to expedite that process would be of great assistance. Luckily, I figured that the Sith weren't in a position to monitor the public Selkath landing site they used. So it seemed like it wasn't too risky to attack. We actually ran into a dark Jedi guarding the shuttle. But with one swing of my lightsabers, I took care of him. Bastila and Mission ran off to take care of two of the Sith soldiers guarding the shuttle, while I dealt with the remaining guards. But before they had even cleared out their two, I came over and dealt with their final Sith. Unfortunately, Mission actually got hit fairly hard by one of the Sith throwing grenades everywhere, but she recovered quickly. Thankfully, it was also a chance for me to upgrade some of my skills with the Force. And I decided to get better at dealing with droids. But just like that, Shuttle Bay was clear, and we quickly ran off to the Sith base. We knew we were on a timetable. Not only did we want to get into the base and find this Republic droid that Roland wanted us to look for, but we also needed to try to find the Selkath youth who had been lost in the base. Or who had been, quote-unquote, lost by the Iridorian mercenary.
Yes?
Appropriately enough, as soon as we stepped out of the shuttle bay, we found a mine waiting for us. But just like that, the three of us were off and we attacked a large control room almost immediately. Amazingly enough, the guards in the control room actually seemed to be able to handle some of our attacks. But before long, they finally fell. Thankfully, some of the guards in the room didn't even seem to notice us attacking, strangely enough. But with Bastila using the Force to help and her lightsaber and Mission's fire support, we managed to deal with everyone guarding the control room. And just like that, we had finally cleared it out. Apparently we were in some kind of flow control room. After reading a document, it turns out that the Sith had some strange setup for moving water around to open different pressure doors. We decided to go for it since it seemed to be the only way to get into some of the deeper parts of their base.
Warning, active.
Unfortunately, though, the systems that the Sith had set up for moving water around between the different rooms seemed incredibly convoluted.
Warning. Warning.
As always, though, the Sith don't make anything easy. And every time I think back on the story, I remember just how frustrating it was to get the stupid doors to open correctly.
Warning.
But just like that, we had finally made it through. Thankful to be out of the water, we began to explore the rest of the Sith base and almost immediately came across yet more troopers. We still hadn't found the droid, but we certainly found plenty of Sith to take care of. One of the Sith actually had the gall to throw a poison grenade at me and actually successfully poisoned me. At the time, Bastila and I both weren't able to heal ourselves and remove the poisons with the Force, but we were at least able to negate the effects. But almost immediately we stumbled across a room full of dark Jedi. We were in for the fight of our lives. But we quickly dispatched one, even though Missin was stunned by one of the Sith. The Sith actually managed to do some pretty good damage to myself and Bastila. But luckily we had some healing equipment on us. The Sith were actually quite skilled. Landing a hit on them was found to be incredibly difficult.
What can I do?
Even as Bastila and I flanked some of the Sith, they managed to take her down. But that just made me fight on all the harder. I decided to try and retreat for a short time, hoping that Mission would be smart enough to follow, but she foolishly continued to engage the Sith. I decided to try to lay a trap for some Sith. I trusted that Mission would be able to play it being knocked out.
Whoever steps on this, nasty shot. Whoever steps on this, nasty. Whoever steps on this.
Luckily, the Sith seemed to be started gloating over their victory and ignored me for a short time, allowing me to set some traps for them.
We'll get a nasty shock.
But just like that, I was ready to head back out there and face them again. With a spring of my lightsabers, I ran back out and re-engaged. Took cover behind my mines, and the Sith barely even paid attention to them, running straight into them. I never said I play fair, especially not against the Sith. Just like that, they were taken care of. I barely had even had to swing my lightsaber. Sadly, though, Bastila and Mission were incredibly injured, but thankfully not so much that they couldn't continue on. Especially not also once Bastila regained some of her concentration and was able to use the Force along with me to aid in the healing process for everyone. Thankfully, though, we also found a computer in the room that the Sith troopers had been in. We were able to start overloading power conduits and doing other things to mess up the base. We caught a glimpse of a strange training room with a number of Sith in them, along with some Selkath who looked pretty young. Managed to actually disable some of the targeting mechanisms on droids that we saw seemed to be guarding the Republic spy droid. With them disabled, I knew we'd have an easier time of getting to the droid we were here to collect the data from. As we rounded a corner, we suddenly found a single Sith trooper patrolling the halls who we quickly dispatched. But we took him down and continued ahead until we found the East Barracks where we had blown up one of the power conduits. Thankfully, none of the Sith in the room had managed to survive the overload of electricity.
Yes?
Yes?
At this point, Bastila had also regained enough force points to,
Sure.
you know, heal us up a little bit. We were all still pretty injured. But as we left the barracks, we suddenly found a young Selkath. They ran off to a seemingly locked-off area of the base. Suddenly they turned after opening the door and pulled a gun on us and forced us to kill it. But it seemed like we had found the training area that we had seen on camera and had been able to guess at, the indoctrination center. Found a medical room with a bunch of dying Selkath lying inside. One of them asked us to tell someone named Sasha something, and had a strange medallion gripped in their hand. Whoever this Sasha was would probably be interested in finding out that something had happened to some of the other Selkath in the base. Found a dormitory full of Selkath. We actually found Sasha and a bunch of other Selkath who seem to have been buying into the Sith propaganda. So luckily, giving Sasha the token convinced the Selkath to escape and leave the base for good and turn their backs on the Sith, which is probably the best thing we could have gotten out of this place. Mission and Bastila were even able to gain some insight thanks to what happened. But just like that, we were back on our way and trying to find whoever the Sith had been that we had spied on the camera, who seemed to be running this training facility for these young Selkath. The only area left was the training room, where we quickly found a bunch of Sith standing by a Selkath. Considering the Selkath had a gun and opened fire on us as well, I have to imagine the Selkath wasn't there as a prisoner. But just like that, we continued forward. I sensed something incredibly strong from the room that we were facing. And there had been a single dark Jedi alone with the young Selkath. Anyone like that was probably a threat to us.
How did you get in here? Wait. As you...
And just like that, the Dark Jedi Master engaged us. Almost immediately, he started throwing his lightsaber at Mission. But luckily, Bastila and I managed to distract him. Bastila took down the first Selkath apprentice and then started helping me on the Master.
The Force fights with me.
It was quite the struggle, but eventually the Master finally fell, leaving us with just a single young, unprepared Selkath. I was sad that the Selkath had to die, but there was no way they were going to stop. I chose to focus more on the fact that we had saved Sasha and a bunch of the other Selkath. I was suddenly almost killed by an explosion, but I managed to find a data pad detailing the Sith's efforts to turn the young Selkath from Manan into their own willing, foolish apprentices. But with that, it felt like it was time to continue on and complete our true mission in the base, finding the droid for the Republic. So we set out to continue exploring. Came almost immediately across two rather large assault droids. I decided to test out my new abilities, to which Bastila responded by almost immediately sending the droid spiraling into the air. Luckily, the droids were not prepared for being attacked with the Force. And between the three of us, we managed to take them down. Thankfully, we had stopped them before they had managed to activate their advanced gravity generators and stop us. But since we they didn't seem to be a local access panel to close the gate, and we had forgotten to check for it back at the security checkpoint, it seemed prudent to head back to the flow control room and explore from there. At this point, now that we'd cleared out the defense droids, it probably wasn't worth it to invest the spikes in getting the shield down. Especially when we quickly found the other side of the shield on the other side of the flow control room. Along with a batch of Dark Jedi. Luckily, these ones weren't nearly as strong as the ones we had previously been fighting. But it was quickly a battle of wits as the Sith started throwing everything they had at us, the remaining two. Mission got actually taken out for a while, but before long I finally took down the leader of this group. He continued to throw force power after us, including actually choking Bastila out. But with 1 against 3, the outcome was inevitable. Bastila responded by breaking his mind, and then that was all over. However, considering there wasn't much of the base left, there didn't seem to be many places the droid could still be hidden. We decided to investigate the entrance to the base.
Come on.
But as soon as we entered the main area, one of the Sith quote-unquote greeting woman immediately summoned her superior from outside the base, who came in with a clutch of security droids. Unfortunately for them, though, they weren't prepared for dealing with 2 Jedi and a scoundrel entering the base secretly. And all 6 quickly fell to our lightsabers. But now that we had completed a loop, it seemed the only option to find the actual droid we were looking for was to check the western side of the base. The other unfortunate event was that it seemed that the shuttle we had used to ride in here was a one-way shuttle, which meant we had no way out. Luckily, we did find a seemingly discarded droid right outside the droid repair room, so we activated it and sent it in with us to help clear out the Sith who were still alive. Luckily, with the added fire support and the fact that we had disabled many of the 2 droids who were active inside on guard duty, made the whole process much easier.
The Force fights with me.
Cleared out a few guards and a few technicians, and we had cleared the way to the Republic droid. We quickly pulled out the data module Roland had described for us. And with that, we were ready to leave the Sith base. Plus, our war droid that we had left behind would probably end up being a nice surprise. However, almost immediately we happened to stumble upon 2 more large assault droids. Luckily, they were not very immune to the Force, and we were able to shut them down pretty quickly. Just like that, we had mostly cleared the Sith base. Although we had what we came for, it seemed prudent to try to clear out what remained of the Sith forces in the base. At this point, it was not worth worrying about whether or not we'd be found out or discovered breaking neutrality. So the best thing we could do was clear out as many Sith as got in our way. Lo and behold, we managed to find even more assault droids waiting for us, along with a Sith guard who seemed to be overseeing them. Luckily, though, the 3 of us didn't have as much more trouble dealing with them than we had had with the 2 pairs of droids before. The Force was still on our side as we used it to quickly disable a number of both of the droids again. And the only thing we had left was apparently a steam room. I told the girls I would go in alone. And I quickly ran through to find out what was on the other side of this massive column of steam, only to find that there was a simple computer program. Another panel that we could have used in the first place. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. But that meant we had explored everywhere that we could easily access in the base, and it was time to go. We were ready to get the hell out of here. Once we got outside of the base, though, we found a bit of a surprise waiting for us. A Selkath leading a whole mess of war droids was waiting for us. Apparently there were some sounds of our fights that had been heard outside the embassy. I was quickly dragged off to jail and told that I was having an arbiter represent me. The arbiter asked me a few questions. He didn't really seem to be into the idea of defending me, so I knew going in that I would probably be dismissing him. I knew I could speak for myself better than an arbiter who didn't really care could. I informed the court... Oh, excuse me. I informed the court that I was not guilty by claiming that the Sith had lured me inside and that I was secretly there for diplomatic negotiations. Seeing as how the Sith couldn't provide enough evidence without screwing themselves to prove that I was guilty, we were allowed to leave. And we quickly made our way over to Roland with the information we had acquired. However, seeing as how we were waiting for mission to leave the prison, it seemed like a good time to call it a day. Why don't we end our story here for now? And for next time, we will tell you about the underwater depths of Manan. But until such a time, I thank you for listening to my story. My name is Mr. Pazaak, and I hope you find yourselves a good game. Talk to you soon.